I was invited by my friend, your dynamic member of parliament, to participate in a literary festival, and that's something that I enjoy doing more than, I wouldn't say more than, but I enjoy doing that equally. In a long career which started when I was greatly privileged to serve on the teaching faculty of a Delhi University college, and I spent a year on that teaching faculty. Of all the jobs I've enjoyed, I think that 1 year was the most satisfying in the true sense of the term. Spent 39 years in the Foreign Service, 6 years after that in the international think tanking world, and now 8th year as a member of the Honorable Prime Minister's team in the cabinet. I was asked to speak on energy security, and I'll be very upfront on it. When I was initiated into the world of diplomacy, we used to view security largely in militaristic terms. Foreign and security policy, much of the debate thereafter was on whether you could develop a security framework. Many people who wanted to deny us our rightful place in the world thought that our security had to be viewed in the South Asian context, that is through the India-Pakistan prism. Many of us as young joint secretaries intellectually fought with them and said that India's destiny, at the very least, deserves its security to be viewed on at least a pan-Asian or a larger regional view rather than on the India-Pakistan view. But equally, when it comes to defining security, I think when you've reclaimed your past and your economy is growing, I yesterday during the course of an interaction, 2 days ago during the course of the interaction, I said that the IMF said that India would be the 4th largest economy, and I think they said 2027. But all the statistics I'm looking at here, and my friend Sanjeev Sanyal will know more about that, I think we would be the 4th largest economy much before that. Now, if you look at our trajectory, and I'm only going to spend 30-40 seconds, not more on that. Before the colonial domination of 190 years, our economy's contribution, according to a Cambridge economist, Angus Madison, was about 23 to 25%. That is, India of that day contributed about 23 to 25% of the global GDP. Came 190 years of colonial domination. By the time we became an independent country, that contribution of 25% dwindled down to 3 or 4% of global GDP. When Mr. Modi assumed responsibility at the center, we were broadly categorized amongst the fragile 5 economies. The fragility label easily understood, that handle with care, liable to get damaged in transit. And we moved from there, from the 11th or 10th position to the 5th position. And as I said, this year, according to some statistics I'm seeing, we will be the 4th largest economy. And then surely if our rate of growth remains net of inflation at the current figures, we will be the 3rd largest economy also before too long. The journey to Viksit Bharat or 2047, and I'm concluding my undergraduate history, economic history overview, I come to energy. I don't think the importance of energy security has been better understood or needs to be understood than today. Why am I saying that? We have a $4+ trillion economy. Any economy in the world that you look at, the first thing you should look at to see how it is faring is its energy consumption. I'm not necessarily suggesting that if your energy consumption is going up rapidly, no, you could be satiated, you could have developed alternate forms, but an energy consumption analysis is a fairly good starting point for a lay person like me to understand where the country is headed. I want to startle you with some statistics, if I may. We have a population of 1.4 billion people. On an average, on any given day, 67 million people in India go to the retail outlets, I mean the petrol pumps, to fill up on petrol, diesel, CNG, battery charging. It's 67 million. If you look at the demographic picture in the world, look at how many countries have a population of that. Two things stand out. In the 3 years that I've been associated, 3.5 years I would say now, that I've been associated with this ministry, our daily consumption of crude oil for refining purposes has gone up from 5 million barrels a day to 5.4 million barrels. At the current rates of growth and projection of energy growth, I think it will be 6 to 7 million barrels per day. 6 to 7 million barrels of crude oil will be required per day. I'm not going to go by what I think is important, but if you accept the work and assessments done by international organizations, there is a Paris-based organization called the International Energy Agency. They have forecast that in the time to come, let's say time to come being defined in terms of 20 years, 25% of the growth in energy demand in the world will come from India. So a quarter of the total growth in the next 20 years will come from India. Why do they say that? Since I spent 39 years in the Foreign Service, I want to be cautious with my words. It's because some of the large energy guzzlers are plateauing or slowing down. Some others are satiated. Geopolitical turmoil has taken the toll on some other countries. Whereas India, no matter which way you look at it, energy consumption is growing and is likely to grow further. So what does energy security at the very least require? It requires that you must be able to plan not only for your requirements today, but you must be able to plan for a tomorrow, a future, and insulated against possible upheavals and disruptions. So far, the story sounds very good, but let me introduce one or two points which should cause us concern. Our dependence on fossil fuel, and now I'm coming to crude oil, even though our E&P, and I can say with a lot of satisfaction that E&P for the first time after 10, 15 years is growing. We've got some very good finds, it's coming up. But because the economy is growing overall, our dependence on imports for crude oil is over 85%. And that 85% dependence means that till you can extract your own crude in your 3.5 million square kilometers of sedimentary basin, you have to make sure that you have access to that imported crude. What have we done there? I'll come into a minute. On gas, it is about 50%. These are the two slight concerning statistics, but why are we not concerned within inverted commas? One, there is no shortage of crude in the world. When prices go up, they go up because an importer's cartel, if I may, I'll be allowed to use that word, OPEC Plus, chooses to limit the quantity of crude which they make available into the global market. So, till a few months ago, or rather when I just come onto the job, the total amount of crude being made available was 102 million barrels a day. They cut back 5 million barrels, and it is now about 97 or so. But crude is coming from other places, from non-OPEC members. In fact, today, surprisingly, and I'm mentioning this to this audience because it might surprise you, there is more crude coming from non-OPEC suppliers. Why do I say that? Western Hemisphere has a large number of new suppliers. Brazil has 3 million barrels a day of production. They had some new finds. They're bringing another 140,000 barrels a day on it. Along with Brazil, you go to Suriname, Guyana, and Canada, by the way. But more important, the United States. Very few people know, and those of you who have taken the criticism of the climate activists seriously, and many of them originate from the United States or Western Europe. Fact is, the United States puts 13 million barrels of crude oil per day on the market. 13 million. And when I was in Houston for the Gastech, the evening I reached, I was in a meeting, but I'm told the former President of the United States, George W., addressed the gathering, and he said, irrespective of the outcome of that celebration of democracy, this was before the US election, the US will put at least 1 or 2 million barrels additional on the market. So I'm making the point that more oil is coming onto the international market. And my assessment today, quite apart from the actions that the outgoing administration is taking in the last 9-10 days of its this thing, when the new president takes over, in addition to the 13 million barrels, I think another 1.5 million barrels minimum will come onto the market. So there is oil available. We have, in order to ensure our security, we have diversified from the 27 sources we used to buy from earlier, and we are now buying from 39 sources. We have also taken other steps, which I don't need to take your time on. What are the challenges that we face on energy security, and what have we done? One, availability. A democratically elected government, not only in India, but anywhere in the world, cannot afford to have a single day or even the remotest area without energy. So when there are torrential rains, my friends in the oil marketing company have their employees carry gas cylinders on their shoulders to deliver in the Northeast. You can see pictures of that. If there is a small shortage somewhere, this social media is such a potent this thing, you will get a immediate information, a little bit of troll. When you tell them it's not a shortage, it's something else. I mean, if somebody giraus it and the energy can't go, it's a separate issue. But availability, and I think we have a very good story to tell. Energy availability for the last 10 years, there's never been, 11 years or even earlier, never been a shortage. But more important than the availability is the affordability. Today, India is the only country in the world where prices of energy have come down over a 3-year period. I could easily give you statistics. I mean, it's verifiable and it's well acknowledged. Why did that happen? Because the current government chose on 3 occasions to reduce the amount of excise duty that we charge. And on 2 occasions, November 2021, May 2022, the combined reduction in prices of petrol and diesel as a result of those excise reductions was 13 rupees and 16 rupees cumulatively. And then another 2 rupees came later. More important, the BJP ruled states brought the amount of VAT down also. More important than even the availability and affordability is, and I'm going to conclude with that because as usual, I made the transition to from being a civil servant to a politician, so give me a mic and I go on longer than I've been asked to, is the sustainability part, the green trend. Today, we can hold our heads high. Our biofuel blending has increased from 1.4% in 2014 to 19% last month. We have a 20% biofuel target of October 2025. We will achieve that target. The target actually was 20% blending by 2030. We brought it forward to 2025. Our CBG, CNG, everything is going well. But the story which I am most excited about is the green hydrogen story. What is required in green hydrogen? A demonstrated capacity to produce clean solar energy at a low, reasonable cost. We've demonstrated we can do it by bringing the cost of 1 megawatt down from 25 cents to 3 cents. That's what we can do. And you need electrolyzers. And the government included electrolyzers in the PLI scheme, I think 1 or 2 years ago, 19,700 crores. So today, every electrolyzer manufacturer anywhere in the world is present in India. But why will the green hydrogen story succeed in India? Simply because green hydrogen lends itself to success where there is local demand, local production, and local consumption. Because the gas, by definition, doesn't travel. Well, you can make green ammonia and export it, which our companies are doing. But I think we have all the conditions right. And now with the implementation of pump storage, I think the green hydrogen story is ready to take off. And I think the 5 million metric tons target by 2030 is a gross underestimation. The IOCL has floated a tender recently, and now you will see the green hydrogen story developing. So I'm going to conclude by saying energy security, I think we have navigated it well. Climate, where does that leave our climate? My simple listing is that if you are doing the green transition effectively, and I mentioned biofuels 1.4% to 20%, if you are going to set up CBG plants, your UP alone is going to get 100 plants plus. I'm going to suggest to my friends in Karnataka through my dynamic young friend here to encourage the government here to set up CBG plants. CNG, our requirement for gas in the overall energy mix from 6% to 15%. We have to go down that road. But most important, we have to make the transition from where we are today to a green future. And you can only make that transition if you survive the present. Today, we are supplying clean cooking gas to the entire population through LPG cylinders. If you are a beneficiary of the Ujjwala scheme, you pay as little as 5 rupees a day for a family of 4. When Mr. Modi assumed responsibility, we had 14 crore connections. Today, we have 33.3 crore connections. One connection is for one household. If you say that one household has 4 or 5 members, then you can say that the entire population saturated coverage. Even if you're not a beneficiary of the Ujjwala scheme, it comes for 15, 16 rupees a day. If you take that along with the fact that our brothers and sisters who are part of the economically weaker section, they're still getting 3 meals of dry ration free in a day. About 80 crore people are getting that. So that shows the scale at which large parts of the world don't have clean cooking medium. I served in Brazil, which is a pioneer in biofuels, but 30% of the rural countryside in Brazil does not have, they still use firewood and charcoal, etc. So I'm going to conclude this by saying the climate goals are served. We have an overall net zero by 2070, but more than that, our individual oil companies, marketing companies have targets of 2035, 2040, etc. And I think we are one of the few countries which has met its Paris goals. And in spite of the developmental challenges, it is very easy for people to talk about climate adaptation if you don't have to deal with the kind of problems. And as my friend here will tell you, what in the last 10 years, we've moved 250 million people out of multidimensional poverty. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. He said this is more of in a layman's language, just for the sake of the audience, some statistics. As he already mentioned, the LPG connections have gone up from 140 million in 2014 to 330 million in 2025, the early part of it. And he has been part of almost 11 prime ministers in different capacities. That's been the illustrious career he has been. And also, in whatever the story that we have so far as a positive story.
No, but I may have worked with 11 prime ministers, but I was never a member of the Council of Ministers with the other 10. So I can
Absolutely,
speak a
sir.
little more to the point on this
Yes.
one.
So even under the whatever that he mentioned about that he being responsible as a minister, as a council minister, India has seen massive increases. Some of the statistics are we have a 103% of refining capacity utilization that has happened, 3% increase in the petroleum products. High-speed diesel accounts to almost 40.9%, whereas the petrol stands at 22.7%. India is powering economies which beyond our borders as well. By 2028, the refining capacity would increase from 256.8 million tons as of now to 309.5 million tons, that is million metric tons per annum, MMTPA. That's the language that we use in energy security. A consumption of the crude oil is 3 times the global average. But despite all these things, India's vision has been expansion is not just for the growth, but for actually energy for the future. Apart from this, there are also, he mentioned that in one of the other forms, 67 million people visit petrol pumps for energy on a daily basis. He also has a very ambitious target of 5,000 plants for the compressed biogas. That's which is hardly 42 as of now. That's an ambitious target that the Prime Minister has given.
It's higher. It's about 78 now.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's 5,000 Satat is a target. And earlier I used to be a little worried, but I think we're getting there now.
Thank you, sir. And I'll just straight away go in the next 20-25 minutes. We'll ask some focus questions to the Minister, and then perhaps we will come and we'll utilize 15 minutes for the question-answer session from the audience itself. So my opening component has been, which you partially touched in your opening remarks, it's about sustainability. Now, India aspires to become a global economic power, which requires sustainable energy consumption. Now, how does the government balance the need for energy to drive development and higher living standards with the environmental implications of such energy consumption? Sir.
Before I come to your question, I'm so happy that you mentioned refining capacity. Because today we are the 4th largest refiner in the world. Our current capacity is about, I think, 260 to 70 million metric tons per annum. And you're absolutely right, by another few years, it'll go to 310. Actually, I have been using somewhat loosely the figure of 400 million metric tons per annum. But I found that in one of the India Energy Week, I think the second one, the Honorable Prime Minister used the figure 450 million metric tons. So I nearly fell off my chair. But a question I'm always asked is by the Prime Minister once that you're increasing your refining capacity with the world changing and you'll have a very few refiners left. What are you going to do with the capacity? Answer is you make petchem. Our consumption per capita on petchem is 1/3 the global average. So as the economy grows, more petchem also. Your question about economic growth, living standards, and sustainability. I think you've captured these 3 very well. Look, the problem just now is that this 250 million people that you have lifted out of multidimensional poverty, you have to go to a different scenario. And with a per capita income where it is now, that part doesn't get solved. You need to raise your per capita income. So I think as you grow from a $4 trillion economy to a $10 trillion economy and onwards to 2047, per capita income will go up. I am not saying that to meet the requirements of what a developed economy is, first of all, that definitional thing, we could have a big seminar on what constitutes. But to provide very good basic facilities, you've done Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, 4 crore, you're doing 3 crore more. You've got Ayushman Bharat, unbelievable. I mean, those states which are 5 lakhs of rupees per day, or you're providing that facility you want to senior people over 70 years of age like me. The fact is you will go to better education, better healthcare, better public transport, all that is coming. And you have to deal with the fact that a developing society also needs to then clamp down when it grows on the polluting segments. Those of us who live in Delhi know that a little better. I mean, we have a government there for the last 10 years, which is allowed the river to have 500 times more pollution than is physically prescribed or allowed, or that the air you choose. My view is that this begins to change. And the digital financial inclusion, all the other steps we are taking, you are moving actually at a very rapid rate in order to be able to provide that ease of living. It will also mean that the middle class and its aspirations will have to be addressed. My friend here will have to ensure that, consumption has to rise. There is a larger debate. I don't think there's a subject here. Yes, you have to control inflation, but you also have to ensure that the benefits of that, salaries have to rise. All that, it's coming as you grow. But even the most cynical of projections about India will say that you've got what is our mean age now, 29 or something like that? You've got a demographic advantage, you've got a hardworking, I'm not getting into how many hours a week you should work. Even with my low salary level, I work much more than 90 hours, but that's not the issue. I'm just having a light-hearted dig at someone, But the issue is, India is aspirational. And the aspiration today is no longer going to be measured in terms of a limited set of things. You'll have to do all three. And the climate aspect becomes very important. So as long as I'm clear that on my side, the climate aspect, biofuels, 19% will reach 20%. Brazil, by the way, went up in terms of the basic fuel mix from 27 to 35%. I don't know. We will get Niti Aayog and others to brainstorm. Can we now start talking about 20% onward? Well, some vested interests will say, abhi nahi. The car manufacturers will say, no, we are quite happy. But we are making E100 available too in 400 pumps. So choices will be there. Gas, I think international prices will come down after 26, 27. There's more gas available than, there more people have set up facilities. I would like to see more and more cheaper gas imported. I would like to see more gas extracted. ONGC is going to produce 45,000 barrels. Yesterday I had a brainstorming session here. I said, by when? He said, we're already at 39, 40. No, I keep nudging them. Others are getting more. A country like Japan has largely a gas-based economy. So what we are getting there, and we are being able to do it by ensuring that the green transition is expedited, not undermined.
Thank you, sir. I move on to the next part of it in terms of India's energy security strategy and also the role of diplomacy in energy security. On the one hand, more than 80% of our, we still import crude oil from different countries, and at the same time, we also are dependent on the foreign suppliers. And how are we going to manage this particular scenario with the other component, that is the role of diplomacy in energy security with countries such as West Asia, Russia, and the United States?
No, one thing is clear. I think from day go, I think the line which has been enunciated here is that the primary responsibility of a democratically elected government is to its consumer. That making energy available at all times, at affordable rates, and to ensure the sustainability is what the government is doing. Now, if disruptions occur somewhere along the line, then you have to navigate past them. Somebody asked me, aren't you under pressure? This is long back. So I said, I work for a prime minister whose head is not wired to feel any pressure, and as a result of it, none of our heads are wired to feel any pressure. I've never felt any pressure. My colleague, Dr. Jaishankar, was going on a trip to the United States, so he called me on the phone and he says, what do I say when it comes to energy purchases from one part of the world? I said, you tell those guys who are asking you, tell them they buy more in one afternoon than I buy in a quarter. I don't know, the phone connection may be bad or so. He must have heard something. In the press conference, he said, and my colleague said, they buy more in one afternoon than I buy in a month. Not 1 month, 3 months. So they are in no position, nobody's in a position to tell you where to buy from or not to buy from. But we are responsible global citizens. And if something is sanctioned, obviously there are issues you have to be careful about. But as far as I know, Russia as a country or Russian oil was never sanctioned. They said you buy under a price cap. You know, I don't act like a Bania, but to a Sikh who has great fascination for the Bania ethic, if I'm told to buy cheap, that's music to my ears. So you get me cheaper oil from anywhere else. I keep telling my people, if you have cheap oil, tell us. We are telling everybody. I tell Guyana, why are you waiting for so many years? You know, enter into a long-term contract now. Look, there is more oil available in the world. Today, what you need is good consumers, and India is a good, steady consumer. So I think they will all come to you. So I'm reasonably confident that this will go on well.
Thank you, sir. Looking at even at the global standards, our per capita energy consumption is comparatively low with the type of population that we have, and all this scenario continues to be there. India intends to play a very important role in the global energy governance, whether it is be International Energy Agency or the G20 or any of these forums. And India envisions to shape the global energy governance, particularly advocating how it's going to be sustainable, how it's going to be environmental friendly, and India is keeping realistic terms, unlike other countries which are just speaking but not walking the same lines. But keeping at the helm of affairs, what is your thought on public-private partnership with regard to supporting India's energy requirements and taking it forward?
You see, I'm a believer that you can't sit one day and work out the scenario in your mind. It has to evolve with the objective realities which are unfolding. One of the very positive things which I should have mentioned earlier was that during India's presidency of the G20, we initiated a global biofuels alliance. When I was ambassador to Brazil, the Brazilian cooperative which deals with biofuels, Unica, their president used to tell me, I'm talking about 2006, 18 years ago, 19 years ago, he used to say that, Ambassador, if apart from Brazil and the United States, India joins the biofuels game, we can have biofuels traded like OPEC and petrol and diesel. And that's a reality. Today, every important country which has anything to do with energy or biofuels is a member of the Biofuels Alliance. All the important international agencies are. And I think it's only a matter of time that if we produce additional biofuels, we'll be able to trade it. I'll give you the example of an entrepreneur in Ahmedabad. He discovered, and he didn't take rocket science to discover that one country in Africa, I'll name the country, they didn't have LPGs or cylinder gas available, which is a product of a refinery, unlike natural gas, which is. So what he did was he sold 1 million cooktops from India to this country, Kenya, and he imported 93-octane ethanol from Brazil to do it. Now this is a classic case of cooperation in biofuel. I think as the Biofuel Alliance takes off, it's only a year old, it was established there. All the signals I see, both in terms of production, norm setting, more avenues of corruption, and there's no entry fee in it. I mean, you don't have to be a biofuels producer or this thing. So you have countries like the UAE, which are major fossil fuel producers, are part of it. Others who would like to enter the biofuels business, and the feeds are increasing now. We used to make it from sugar, then we entered broken rice, then we entered maize. Now we are making it from agricultural waste, parali, and now very soon in the northeast, plant to make biofuels from bamboo. So the world is changing. You're discovering the use to which you can put biomass, etc. So it's a fascinating game. And I think India, by virtue of its human capital, by virtue of the fact that you have a government which will encourage startups in the ecosystem. I mean, when I go to India Energy Week, I hope you all come there. The most fascinating thing for me is to see youngsters from the IITs and other technical institutions coming there and showing their products in terms of startups.
Sure, sir. I'll be failing in my duty if I don't ask this question. This is largely which also resonates with my audience. This is regarding energy pricing and economic growth. On the one hand, rising energy prices, particularly in the global markets, directly affect economic growth and living standards. Now, what measures the government taking to shield citizens from these price shocks? That's first part. Second part is, on the other hand, on a positive note, how can the public participate and contribute in optimizing India's energy policies and foreign policy strategies? Are there any mechanisms for greater citizen involvement and awareness in these domains?
Well, first and foremost, I think one needs to take note of how energy is priced. I'll give you a very simple listing. First is the cost of production or the price per barrel at the point of extraction. Then you add to that the freight cost, the insurance cost, then the refining margin, and then come in the taxes, okay? So I don't think any government anywhere in the world, apart from the OPEC producers, is in a position to say how much the energy per barrel should be at any given point of time. But we have some impact on the rest. So as I said, the central government reduced the excise duty on 3 occasions, twice November 21, May 22. BJP ruled states reduced their state VAT. How much does it cost to extract a barrel of oil? I don't think more than $6, $8. But what would the producers want? They would want it at 80 so that this becomes a budget balancing for them. If they have major expenditures, they want to finance them. Can it be sustained at? My personal view, it can't be, because there is more oil available than is required. So you can hold it back for a point. Plus, there are some other important things taking place. One, other sources of energy are coming on. We bet in a big way on nuclear energy long back when the then Prime Minister almost staked the survival of his government on the India-US civilian nuclear energy deal. We had an India-specific IAEA safeguards agreement, but commercial contract, it didn't take place. Today we are talking about smaller modular reactors. I don't know whether they're going to work, but other energies are coming on. Today you have wind, solar, you've got CBG, natural gas, etc. So going forward, I think we will still be dependent and have our transition anchored in fossil fuels for the next 2 decades or so. But meanwhile, other energy sources are coming in. And how much you consume, frankly, I mean, another statistic I want to share with you, 70% of our vehicular traffic today is 2-wheelers and 3-wheelers. And most of them are on batteries, which are either swapped or charged at the station. So my point to you is, I was civil aviation minister for 2 years, but I was housing and urban affairs minister for 7 years. You know what the average ridership in a Delhi metro is? On a good day these days, we get 70 lakh people riding metro. So if this kind of today we've got 1,000 kilometers of metro systems functioning in India, another 1,000 kilometers coming. In less than a year and a half time, we will be the world's 2nd largest urban transport or metro system. We are, I think, already overtaken Japan and Korea, if I'm not mistaken. And the US has 1,560 kilometers. We'll be past that. So you'll have India and China. US doesn't need more metro. I mean, it's fully developed. The point I'm making is, as people drive more, ideally, you see, what is good planning? Not to have cars transported around. You should have people transported around. So we have a good public transport system, like a metro, etc. Now you've got this RRTS, linking Delhi with other cities, Meerut, etc. It has a phenomenal effect on real estate prices, on green mobility is in and of itself a big achievement. So I think we are getting there.
Thank you, sir. I think that's a message to the audience to use more public transport and help out the government to reduce the dependency on energy. My one last question, sir, with that we'll stop and so that we can have more questions from the audience. The continuity and dynamism in energy policy itself. Now, Indian energy and foreign policies have seen continuity and dynamism under successive governments. How would you assess the consistency of these policies, and what are the inevitable trade-offs that India must accept in pursuit of energy security and environmental goals? We've been doing already quite a few things, including the International Solar Alliance to many other things. Some light on this particular aspect.
No, if you're looking for potential conflicts in energy policy and energy security and climate education, I don't see them.
Okay.
Unlike most people who spent their time following the academic debate, and I'm not alone. When I first went to Davos, and that year it was a summer Davos, I was struck by the fact that in the first 2 days, the entire debate, this is post February 2022, after the Russia-Ukraine thing, first 2 days, the entire, gathering there in Europe was, this is wrong, that is wrong. But next time when we sat inside with the oil companies and the actual decision makers, there was a completely sea change. Look, if I were to listen to my friends in the UN system with whom I've spent an entire lifetime, they would say it's very bad, very bad. So as a result of all their moaning, the financing into traditional energy went down. When the traditional energy funding went down, wells which were already, every year you dig a well today is doing very well, next year it decreases by 7% and so on, it goes on depleting. So prices went up. Look, you've got to ensure that energy is available, affordable, and you're doing the sustainability. You can only do that provided you are simultaneously ramping up the green energy production. If you attack it beyond a point, then economic activity stops. What is the situation in our neighborhood? I don't want to get into that. There's a country to the west of India, they have to close their lights at 8 o'clock. There is no energy. What is the situation in other countries? The way some of them are planning, they will need to be very careful. You either produce your energy or you import your energy. And by the way, this audience will understand. There is no room for altruism or philanthropy in this. It's hard. So people who have their feet firmly on the ground, who know the real world, will be able to tell you, hey, good, we have to keep the prices low, but we have to simultaneously encourage. I have a friend who's a politician in Delhi. He tells me a very interesting thing. He said, जब से electric गाड़ी खरीदी है, हमारा तो petrol bill खत्म हो गया. Yes, if you're going inside a city and you have a car which gives you what, how many hours of endurance, I don't know, but it's more than enough for city. But the electric vehicle manufacturers are now coming up with things which have a 600 kilometers endurance. And look at the electric stations which are coming up all along the thing. My own oil companies are putting up 22,000. Others will put up. Now the PM scheme on rooftop solar is brilliant. Absolutely. I mean, it's very easy to talk about, I'll give you this free, that free. You give the free and then one day you'll come into you'll suddenly find that you're having to tax toilets like in Himachal. But you have to be realistic. So what does the government say? You come and take a subsidy from us, set up a solar rooftop, with the electricity that you produce from there, use 300 units free. Rest you use as a charging station outside your house, you charge your EV. And if you are surplus, we'll take it in the grid. Now the fact that we have a synchronous grid, that's one of our big advantages. My information on the technology front is that we are now moving from the hybrid. I think the car of the future is the hybrid. That is one which has a battery and it goes on petrol. But the next generation is a battery and biofuel. But there's still sharper. You see what happens in that battery plus fuel, they're up to 40 kilometers, it's running on the battery and the battery is charging itself. And finally, when it goes beyond 40, you are using the petrol or the biofuel. Absolutely. But that is a battery also which, gets charged in the operation. Now you're getting the plug-in varieties. I mean, you just plug the thing into your socket at home. So the innovation which is taking place is mind-boggling. And I think we're going to get there now.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Now we'll open it up for the audience. I hope some of you must have watched his interview at the CNN. He roasted the anchor by saying, I will not answer any hypothetical questions. So don't ask any hypothetical questions.
Ask whatever you like.
So keep it practical and keep it focused. We have a question. Please hand over the mic here.
Just identify yourself so that I know where the question is coming from. Yeah.
Good morning, sir. Myself, Father Shagde. First of all, I'm your great fan, sir, especially the way you deal with the Western
Thank you.
media.
Thank you.
So the question is, please help us understand, like a common people like us. The question is written down. Sir, is India's connection with the Arab countries is dependent solely on oil and natural gas, or is there a much scope beyond it? I'm asking this question because in India today we have more and more electric EV vehicles coming up. So basically, what we common people, Aam Aadmi, think is that the dependency import of oil and natural gas will be reduced. So how will be the diplomatic connection with the Arab and Gulf countries in the future? Thank you.
No, first of all, I think for you, you're very young and you are perhaps looking at the connection with the countries in the Middle East and the Gulf in terms of what your this thing is. First of all, let me try and place a perspective on it. Our relations with those countries are age-old. They're age-old. I mean, let me start right at the beginning. India is an ancient civilization. We have had civilization here in fully grown form for thousands of years. If you want to put a date on it, I don't know. We could have a discussion between my friends here, Sanjeev and all, whether it's 5,000-year-old, 7,000. Varanasi is 1,000-year-old. We are one of the three ancient civilizations. Which are the other two? I would say the one in China, Yangtze, and the one in the Middle East, Euphrates and Tigris, the Middle East. What were those contacts? I can tell you that there were Arab settlers coming into India centuries BC. Okay? And you've got these trading links on the coast of India. Again, I don't want to get into the dating business because somebody, no, it's not this, it's this. But the fact is, there were Arab settlers coming into even Kerala and other places, etc. There was a flourishing trade going on. So oil was never on the scene. Equally, today it's not just energy. Yes, amongst the largest suppliers, when I joined this ministry and I was trying to educate myself, I saw, well, we are consuming 5 million barrels of oil per day. Where is it coming from? True, 800,000 plus was coming from several of these countries. Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, Iraq. 4 at 800,000 or a million, that's about 3.2 to 4 million, and one from everywhere. Then suddenly came Russia, Ukraine. We used to import from Russia only 0.2%, but that suddenly went up. Look, as I said, the primary duty of a democratically elected government is to cater to the requirements of its consumers. You know, not many people know. We import sometimes more energy from the US than we do from some of these countries. We buy $20 billion worth of energy from the US every year. And as President Trump takes off, what, another 9 days to go? I think energy trade between us and the Northern Hemisphere and the Western Hemisphere is going to be an important factor. I mean, I can't predict which way it's going. But today, if you look at the demographic situation there are some countries where India is not only the largest group of people, I don't want to start naming countries, but the fact. So it's much more than oil now. Indian workers, Indian business is contributing to it. I was in UAE recently and I was told that the percentage of Indian population there is increasing. It will go up to about 40% or so. And these are not children born to Indian people there. These are high net worth individuals who are moving there. So there are a lot of other complicated games. But it's not just an oil relationship. Oil is important. I mean, it would be important anywhere. But it's a very complicated and a very rich relationship. It's also, that's why when in the G20 there was this decision taken about an economic corridor between India and the countries here onto Europe and the United States. I welcome that because that is the trade. You know, connectivity is a great multiplier of economic activity.
Yeah, thank you. We have a question here, Harsha, I believe. Yeah.
Namaste, sir. This is Harsha here. You spoke about India and...
Move away from the speaker. Yeah, that's better.
You spoke about India Energy Week and youngsters and startup. In that context, I want to ask if can tier 2 cities like ours, where
Oh, it's fine. Go ahead.
can tier 2 cities like ours, where we have innovation, youngsters, institutes, and a lot of effort being done at their level maybe, but do not find the right exposure or are not harvested enough, for lack of a better word, be part of this wave by having the ministry bring the India Energy Week-like events or a mini version of that, like energy conclaves or something that happens in spaces like this, so that we also have an opportunity to be part of some effort like this.
No, I want to, I'm very happy you asked this question, Harshaji. When we did the first India Energy Week, and that was done in Mangaluru, and the next one was in Goa. Now we are building a permanent exhibition facility in Goa. The ONGC owns 240 acres land, which they've made available. We are building a huge conference facility of the kind which we have in Bharat Mandapam or Yashobhumi in Delhi, hotels, etc., so that, you know, entities all over the world can stage their conferences there. It's also a revenue earner. But one of the things that the Honorable Prime Minister mentioned then is कि इतनी बढ़िया exhibition करते हैं, how do our youngsters get to see it? So this time India Energy Week is open every day to youngsters and members of the public. I mean, we probably cannot get you into the closed door sessions because if policy makers are there, then it creates other problems. But it's open to the public. And this time we made a conscious attempt to, by the way, we're not spending any money on it. Huh? So sometimes says, oh, taxpayers, no, this is all from the space bought by the companies who are coming there and others who want to come there as exhibitors. So it's a completely new experience. So my advice is anyone who wants to, you see, it's not what happens in the closed door room when Sanjeev Sanyal and other bright economists are sitting there and discussing. That's one thing. But the very fact you will go there, you will go to the stalls. Like in Goa, I was very happy that when the Honorable Prime Minister was being taken around, he went to the BPCL stall. BPCL is one of our oil marketing companies, and they were exhibiting a homemade indigenous electrolyzer. Okay? What does it do? They took a bark design, which I was a joint secretary for Navy and the MOD. They separate oxygen from water. So you use that technology and they've got a small thing that somebody else is producing. So a lot of youngsters come to me and saying, I'm producing this electrolyzer without a membrane. If you meet people there, that is, I think, the cross-fertilization of contact and ideas. That's why wherever I go these days, in the run-up to India Energy Week, which is 1 month away, I encourage people. I said, come there, have a look, etc. Because we started 3 years ago. It was not so modest, but it was good beginning. Today, it's going to be the largest energy show in the world. And unlike others which are, placed in fossil fuels or other things, this one has technology, all the other components of the startup ecosystem which are related to energy, all involved there. So my serious invitation to you and other youngsters, see what is on offer there, because then you will realize how much the country has gone forward. I can tell you, I am first and foremost a student. When I do brainstorming with my OMCs, when we talk about AI, when I look at the extent to which AI and these are already being utilized, not only in refinery management, it's mind-boggling. So these are the work which is being done. And I think our greatest strength at the end of the day is the human capital. Because given some more support in terms of the startups, the technology, the frontier edge, pioneering work which is being done, you would produce something which is matchless in terms of global activities.
Absolutely, sir. I think with our dynamic member of parliament here,
I keep looking at him for that.
Who has proved his worth, having 7 versions of the LitFest. I'm sure an energy summit here would certainly make a way.
No, we can easily. Yesterday, my honorable friend, the member of parliament, he met the oil marketing companies. If you want to organize an energy security event in here, well, you can go ahead and talk to them. I will support it. And it's also useful to do it here and other places in addition to the India Energy Week. But the India Energy Week should be the fulcrum because they will bring in stuff from outside and here, which you may not be able to. Then you can selectively invite people from there. I hope you will be there India Energy Week.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you. And we have one...
I'm trying to organize for him and other members of parliament to be coming to parliament every day on a green hydrogen fuel cell bus, which we have produced. So then they will become the advocates of that.
Great, great initiative, sir. We have one last question. We have a young international relations scholar, Mr. Prajwal. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Minister, and thank you, Professor, for such informative session. My name is Prajwal. I have a couple of questions, sir. My first question is, until 2015, India did not house any intergovernmental organizations when it comes to the aspect of energy security. Approached 2015, India got its first intergovernmental organization, that was International Solar Alliance, which is based in Gurgaon, Haryana. So the question is, what is the significance of establishing such kind of an intergovernmental organization in India? And my second question is, when it comes to the tapping of thorium as a nuclear reactor, why is that no policy maker or no think tanks have come up with any policy regarding tapping thorium?
Coming on what?
On thorium.
Thorium.
Because we
Okay.
don't have...
Now, see, your second part of the question, why no think tank is, I think I should not comment on it here because I may be treading into other people's toes. But why are international organizations situated in particular places? If you permit, I can give you some insights which may not be readily available. The current structure of the multilateral world, which essentially has the UN, the United Nations, as its fulcrum, and then it has the Bretton Woods institutions, the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, and the what is called the WTO now. Let me give you the history. The 1945, when the San Francisco Conference was taking place, at that point of time, the Second World War was still going on. Because the Second World War was going on, people had to start already applying their minds to where the United Nations, which was being established, where it would be situated. Now, there was one very famous man who came up with a brilliant idea. He bought off all the marshland in New York, which was marshland was available at a fraction of the cost. And he argued that the United Nations cannot be situated in San Francisco, where the conference was taking place. Why? Ostensibly because San Francisco was too close to the enemy country, which was Japan. Okay, it's a very convenient argument. You are asking why things are situated elsewhere, and I'm going to give you a serious explanation. Then somebody told him, why can't it be situated as in Washington, D.C.? So he came up with another brilliant idea. He said it can't be in Washington, D.C. D.C. already has 100 of these ambassadors. If you get another 100 UN ambassadors coming there, they'll make life miserable for us. So let it be situated in New York. So somebody said, New York is very good, but what are you offering? He said, I'll tell you what. I will give you the land for the 38-story building and I will present the Secretary General's residence. For such a small contribution, the Secretary General's house, which he built, which is a very modest system, and if memory serves me right, he provided the land for that 38-story building. Hardly any contribution. They agreed to New York. Okay, there's a book on it, The Act of Creation. I've got it from there and talking to people when I was PR. And he made a killing. Every country went there, came, they bought land. So in New York today, the Big Apple grew up as a result of this one entrepreneur's thing. But that explains why it was headquartered in New York. What happened after 1945 is that some places in the world became UN centers. Clearly New York, because the specialized agencies were not there, but the main UN was there. For the specialized agencies, some other people got off the mark, like Geneva became a specialized agencies thing. Then Vienna became, IAEA and all those people went there. Geneva had the specialized agency, ILO. By the way, the ILO was already in Geneva before the Second World War. ILO predates the UN. Okay, now why you're coming to the question, I'm giving you a background. Because India has come of age and because India has something original to offer, they made the initiative on the International Solar Alliance. Again, we made it because it was the Indian presidency. We made the Honorable Prime Minister on both occasions. So Global Biofuels Alliance is headquartered in India. So countries have to come forward. Now, there were regional commissions set up. Regional commission for ESCAP is in Bangkok. The other one is in Santiago de Chile. Then some are elsewhere. So countries have to also take the initiative. Now, the point is in 1945, when the UN was established, we were still under colonial domination. We participated in those conferences. But, you were not in the thing. By the way, the Bretton Woods, which institutions, what Bretton Woods is sleepy town in New Hampshire, where largely the intellectual give and take between John Maynard Keynes and the American finance, Mr. White, they determined the contours. So everywhere it's individuals. Today, you are there. Tomorrow you set up the new world for the next 20. Most of you are very young. If you set up the next world, you will come up with ideas and that's how the world will be shaped. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.